Hello, everyone. I'm Travis Weller, and I'm currently chairing the Educational Outreach Committee for Phi Beta Mu International. Thanks for joining us for committee conversations. And joining me today is Dr. Adam Gumble. He is the Assistant Professor of Music Education at Westchester University, where he directs one of the concert bands and is a director of the athletic bands, including the 324 member incomparable Golden Ram marching band. And he also does work with their six-man pep band. And he's going to be joining us today to talk about developing student leadership. Adam, thanks so much for making the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, incredibly passionate about the subject and thankful for the invite. And anytime I get to hang with Dr. Weller is a good time. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, Adam, I know this has been, even from your time as a high school director in southeastern Pennsylvania, this has been something that you've been very finely attuned to, and knowing the depth and the quality of the program that you developed, there had to be some of these elements at work because my view on it for a lot of directors nowadays is directors can't do it alone.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I just been super fortunate. You know, we've all been, you make your own luck, but you're also lucky along the way to get to work with incredible people. And I went to high school in Northeast PA program, the Pocono Mountain High School, and it was a pretty decent program, really strong program. As I was going through and led by incredible band directors, and but it was really kind of a two man operation, and 140 150 kids in the program, and so they really relied on teaching the students how to teach each other and teaching the students how to develop and deploy parts of the program. And I had an amazing experience there. I was really fortunate to be a student leader and to get the experience leading my peers. And you learn an awful lot about life when you're doing those things.
Right.
And went to Westchester University, and which is also historically been it's a student owned and operated ensemble. That's what we say, the marching band in particular, and showed up, with 300 other people, and learned really quickly that the model that I was used to in high school, where the students were doing a lot of the actual teaching and a lot of the cleaning of drill and a lot of the music pedagogy, wasn't necessarily the model that was widely accepted. I met a bunch of people from other programs who really incredibly successful programs, who had, the mellophone visual tech who was teaching them how to do things, or the one of the first guys I met was the tuba music tech at a local high school, and I didn't even know what that meant. Like, what does that mean? Like, you're going fix the tubas?
Yeah,
Like, you
as a
get
tuba player, like what?
yeah, like what?
There's people for
Uh,
that?
right. Like, what is it you say you do here? Um, and so it became really clear that the model that was embraced when I was in high school wasn't necessarily the model that was out there. And there's a lot of emulation with drum corps, and you've got staffs of incredible humans, people who
Right.
are great teachers who have incredible experiences and a lot to offer students. But it wasn't necessarily the students who were doing the teaching, right? But at Westchester, I was there, got to be a music section leader, and ended up being a student coordinator, which was basically the student director for the band, and continued to develop my chops as a teacher, continue to take my lumps as a teacher, what works, what doesn't. But was really fortunate that Dr. Villela, who was Dr. Wells's predecessor, the Wells School of Music, named after him. Dr. Villela was one of his students, and continued that model where I really felt like I owned a lot of the program, and I felt like I was developing my skills as a teacher, as a future music educator. And I took that model with me out into public schools, and when I got to Quakertown, Um, I was working with my assistant high school director, Andy Yosviak, was the director at Quakertown, and so he had incorporated that student owned and operated model at Quakertown, and I got to continue to work with that, and it's really and go into Hempfield subsequently, after that, same kind of deal, and it's not just about having section leaders who are taking attendance and section leaders who are helping with the cultural aspects of things. Yes, that's critical, and that's what a lot of programs are doing. And but it's about having a model where they are really taking ownership of the product, and not only that, teaching all of the students in the program to be their own leader. Their own teaching them to be their own tech and to become a self-cleaning oven when it comes to their own improvement. So, and then coming back to Westchester, super logical. It's like, let's continue that upward trajectory, continue that model, make some tweaks as we go. Every year, it's a different model. Every year, it's a student-owned and operated model, but we stretch the positions and the specific job descriptions, and we add and subtract based on the skill sets of the students and what their needs are to make sure that they get where they want to be as future teachers and future leaders themselves. So, and also have the opportunity to be the director of education for Vivace Productions, which is a student leadership organization. We teach marching band leadership camps all over the country and have for quite some time. So, and anyway, the long and the TLDR, yeah, super passionate about it. But really, as a result of my previous experiences, you teach how you were taught, and my goal is to carry on that tradition and to continue to weave in the lessons that I learned from incredible people out there and my own experiences to make sure that all of our students, regardless of if it's at the university or through high school clinics or any of the workshopping that we're doing with Vivace, is just to help become better performers, of course, but then better people, with the skills that we're trying to instill in them.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting nuggets there, and the one to me is that apprenticeship of observation, like that teaching how we were taught, and
Yeah.
there are points where that can be dangerous, and it was interesting how you noticed, like in talking with others when you arrived, like, okay, my experience was not the experience that others had anywhere. And I'm sure for some of those people that you were in school with, that was a significant change for them, in that sometimes, like, all of a sudden the director is not the absolute authority on all things. And I,
Mhm.
I, I think for some directors, that might be an uncomfortable place to be. And again, there's that long standing of, like, this is only going to be a one-way conversation. I'm the director, and this
Mhm.
is the way I say it has to be.
Yeah.
The second part, as you were explaining things, that I thought was just so crucial, is recognizing that we have an algebra teacher who goes in, and they know that they're going to teach this year in algebra, and by the time they get to October, they better be here. And like
Mhm.
band directors, we don't necessarily have that luxury because our personnel change. And
For
there
sure.
are techniques or strategies that we can use, but we have to be sensitive to the fact that this changing group of humans, that collective personality, the individual strengths, the collective strengths. And so I thought it's interesting that you are also tracking that along the
Yeah.
way as you are trying to get the most out of your people,
Yep.
recognizing that, okay, I asked this kid to do this year, but this kid's going to be responsible for it this coming year.
Yeah.
That's not a
Yeah.
fair ask.
Well, with algebra, so and I think I said this before, as we were prepping, earlier, just kind of shooting the breeze a little bit, chopping it up, but it's like, you know, right and wrong. There in algebra, there's right and wrong. In algebra, there's a right answer and there's a wrong
Yeah.
answer. But typically, when you're dealing with people, and all of our programs are people are programmed. That's something we say constantly. We're in the people business, and any organization is a a collection of relationships between people that are developed through conversation and experience. So as we look at our personnel, our human beings that we're dealing with, there's not really necessarily a right and wrong way to deal with them. It's a spectrum of effectiveness that's all based on context. It's based on their personal the lives that they have lived. It's based on their environment. It's based on our program, the needs, cares, and concerns of our program. It's this really interesting amalgamation of factors that shift context every year. Yes, we are the Incomparable Golden Rams marching band every year. Yes, we are a student-owned and operated organization. Yes, we want to prepare. We want to have an incredible product on the field, right? But the process is going to shift along with the personnel, right? So what we want to do is, again, stretch the framework over the talent, right? This year, and that could be. It sounds like you're reinventing the wheel every year, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's like, okay, I buy that for sure. What is our framework? Well, we're going to have student leadership. We're going to have a lot of them. We're going to train students to lead themselves so they can lead others. Every person in our organization is going to learn how to lead themselves, because rule number one, the law of Dr. Tim's number one law of leadership: you can't lead others until you lead yourself, right? So everybody's going to come into this program and they're all going to be considered leaders of themselves. Level one, I, me, intrapersonal responsibilities. What are those things? And there's a whole system for music and a whole system for visual, and that we install those systems, that level one, I, me responsibility. And then over time, it becomes a level two, we, us connection, right? And what do we do to make sure that we can be the best version of us that we can possibly be, so that eventually we can get to level three, which is making connections with our sphere of influence, the people in the stands or the people in the outside world, and we can have a positive impact on them. So anyway, that's the structure, that's the framework. But then the actual specific jobs and descriptions within that framework are going to shift based on context, based on the personnel, the needs, cares, concerns, the anticipated professional trajectory. All of those things are going to change. So for instance, this year, for the first time, we eliminated the idea of the label of section leader. Section leader is gone. We have leaders who
you're getting a
are.
little radical right now, like that.
That's yeah. I think my brain broke when we were, but it was conversations with our student leaders, and it was the idea of, we get into mindless reps. We have this whole conversation about mind less versus mind more. When do we get in mindless rep territory? Well, typically it's mid-season. Typically it's when we think we're good enough. Typically it's when we feel routine. Typically it's when the same people are around us and we're in these contexts that become stale. Well, why does the trumpet music section leader have to stay with the trumpets? Aren't we all teachers? Aren't we all students? Aren't we all leaders? So we have a team of trumpet music instructors, right? Or I should say a team of music instructors who happen to play the trumpet as a primary instrument. And we have a whole music instructor team who play all kinds of different instruments. But now we can put them together. If we remove the label of trumpet music section leader, we just have music instructors. Now we can put them together in different teams. We can have these different permutations of context, like we can recontextualize and increase variety and flexibility, and we can hear from different voices, which is going to raise our level of engagement. We can do all these really cool things. And guess what? That trumpet music instructor, or that music instructor who plays the trumpet, now they're going to get experiences that are going to help them in their future, right? They're going to recontextualize their experiences. They're going to figure out what's effective and ineffective based on different contexts. And they're going to be able to be the best version of them in the future that they can possibly be, or at least move the needle in that direction, right? So we have a team of music instructors, a team of visual instructors for the first time. And there's a lot of questions. Our whole team, at this point, they understand that we're gonna mess around with things, because improvement is always a result of evaluation and adjustment. So if we're not adjusting, if we're not getting better, we're not making adjustments, we're not growing. But there's a ton of questions. Are we going to be able to do this? How is this going to work in this different context? And I'm totally okay saying we're going to learn all this together. We're going to grow together. We know if our philosophy is strong, if our philosophy is student owned and operated, and our philosophy is level 1, 2, 3, and we all understand that, then we're gonna be okay, right? We're gonna make sure that we remain aligned, we remain together, and yeah, and if something is ineffective, not wrong, but if something is more on the ineffective side, then we're gonna keep messing with it to see how we can ultimately make it as heighten the efficacy so that our trajectory is what it needs to be.
It certainly is going to, from the sounds of things, it's going to allow you some fluidity, to engineer your success in a way that it's maybe a little bit different. And certainly, I think the value there is it will grow some understanding, some practical empathy for those music leaders, that they're
Yeah.
going to have a better understanding. Okay, well, I know what I go through with the trumpet section, but I had
Hmm.
no idea that the saxes and the clarinets had to think about this as I go over it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
all
and
of a
and the
sudden,
culture, and they're going to be immersed in different cultures. Like we're both tuba players, dude. Like that tuba culture is, well, we don't want to scare people by describing it, but
well,
it's
listen,
oh,
why did we choose it? It's just three valves and
it's
like
just right,
just
right.
three. Like good.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm speak for myself. I'm built for comfort, not for speed. So like I have to. That instrument chose me in a lot of ways, right? But when those hotshot trumpet players get around the tubas, they're going to start to understand that what works even across the field. What works with that team over there um, is not going to work the same way as this team over here. So, and this is something that's very deployable in high school contexts as well. It's shifting. You have to shift yourself as an observer of your own world. I think to start to really wrap your head around and ask questions like how would this work, and you have to wonder a little bit and then invent a system that meets those the needs, cares, and concerns, those NCCs of your different environments. So, and the first thing you were talking about before with with regard to the idea of like stretching different people, like and going outside of comfort zones, basically. Our guys are definitely they understand that this is a student centered environment, right? And the teacher centered environment is like the teacher tells you what to do, and the teacher is fixing mistakes, and the teacher is really in control of the entire situation. And it is uncomfortable when you move to a learner centered environment
Mhm.
where the learners are the ones who are doing the doing, right? It's one of my favorite quotes I've heard in the last few years, and we use it to death, is the one who does is the one who learns, right? So um, if we are putting them in a situation where we are doing all the doing, and the only doing that they are doing is performing, then are we building better people, or are we building better performers? So, what can they be doing? What are we teaching them in a learner centered environment where they are making the decisions that increase their trajectory, that keep the nose of the plane 5 degrees above the horizon on every single rep? And that is the crux of the entire program. Is it is not up to me. Yes, I'm gonna facilitate the environment. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm gonna plant seeds. And we're gonna install systems. James Clear, Atomic Habits. We don't rise to our goals, we fall to our systems. We're going to install systems that every single person in the group is going to be able to fall to, but they're all going to be about their growth. And if we have that process and we embrace progress, then the product takes care of itself. And we still have something that's out there that's, you know,
Yeah.
incomparable.
Yeah. Well, and that's a couple things there. Like, um, I have always tried to be very process oriented and focus on
Yes.
that next rehearsal, the next rep.
Hmm.
Let's do this better. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes, the pressure of having that product and in the case of marching band, it is such an outward facing
Yeah.
advocacy tool. And I think sometimes there's a little bit of clenching, like if we are not
Yeah.
good that first time out,
Hmm.
what are we going to create in the minds of people that, somehow that we have not, so we have not met our goals, we have not met our own expectations. And I think for some directors, I can appreciate, and I think I've been there in part of my career, but I've also gotten to this other part where I started to acknowledge that, and I'm much more a firm believer in it now, is that we make investments in musical ensembles, we make investments in musicians, but we
Hmm.
make investments in people as well. And when
Hmm.
those investments mature at the same time, the reward is pretty awesome. But
Yep.
we have to remember that all three of those need care, all three of those need intention. And if we're only over here on one, that
Hmm.
tricycle gets really out of balance really quick.
Hmm. Oh,
Get
that's a great way
trapped.
to put it. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Dude, the beginning of the year, it scares me to death every year. It's scary. It's scary because we all have, um, you know, stakeholders. We all have people who we want to, there's an expectation of excellence. And you're right. I mean, it's the outward face of the group, and there's elements of it that your entire school community expect it to be really good. It's a huge investment of time. It's a huge investment of money for a lot. Like
Yeah.
this, it's a big deal, and the product has to be good, and it has to meet those or exceed those expectations. So it's really easy to try to grab the reins and control every single element of it because you trust that you're going to be able to make it happen. And the leap of faith is installing and is trusting that your students who are have half developed brains and have chemical all kinds of chemical craziness going on and are are going to actually be able to grab those reins for themselves and are going to be able to invest in themselves and in the process that is installed, right? So with every rep stands for reflect, engage, perform. All right. So after the rep, we perform, and then everybody needs to reflect on what just happened and take an inventory. Take a level one, I, me, intrapersonal inventory, right? Of the things that I have control over. Okay. And then if I don't make space for that, if I don't have we have a 3 second rule, no sound after the rep for 3 seconds. That's our time for reflection. It's a system. Drum major doesn't say anything. We get to the end of the rep. There's what feels to people like an uncomfortable waste of time. That's actually an investment of time. Everybody's reflecting. And now check, adjust, add it to the inventory. And now feet in the form. Okay. So at that point, they've taken their level one I, me inventory. Now there's going to be some level two feedback, we, us feedback that maybe they couldn't see or hear from their vantage point. Who's going to deploy that feedback? Well, most of the time it's going to be section leaders. Most of the time, I'm sorry, instructors, the instructor team, right? It's going to take a while to get used to it.
You might you might take up a collection during camp at West. Like
Yeah,
every
that's a great
time you
idea.
say it
Yeah.
wrong, like
Every
put a
time I say
dollar
section
in.
leaders, right,
This
exactly.
is buying your
Yeah.
pizza, kids. Let's go.
It's gonna
Hold me
right.
accountable.
It's gonna pay for that next trip overseas. The and then they have this level one inventory. They've got maybe some suggestions from level two, and then let's try it again. right? They're going to engage in goal setting. When they engage, they've reflected, and now they're going to engage. They're going to take that inventory, and they're going to choose and prioritize. And now let's engage in goal setting so we can perform at a higher level,
Yeah.
right? So if everybody's engaged in that rep process the entire time, that is there. That to us is the optimization, right? If you are waiting for, if you're one of the 300 and I don't know, the last count we had for this coming season is 343 members. If you're one of the 343 people who's out there and you're waiting for my tuba playing A to try to fix you, then you're gonna be waiting a long damn time, and we're not gonna get very good. So the optimization of it is that systemic installation and that mindset of, yeah, here's your 3 sec. This is reflection. And is it possible there are people on the field who aren't taking those 3 seconds to go through that process meaningfully? Yes. But if we don't make that time, we never have time. We got to make it. If we don't make that time and space, then we fail to allow for that growth for the other, whatever the percentage is. Even if it's 5%, is that worth it? It's more, in my experience, it's more like 90-95% of the people who are out there. And when you say goals, everybody says it at the same time. It's a cacophonic disaster. It sounds crazy. And then we get back to it and we take the next rep. So that to me is, and to us, is real learner-centered education, right?
It's, there was one term there that I thought was so interesting, and that's the idea of investment. And, when you've got a group, and for most of us as band directors, like nobody has to be there. Like a lot of our groups, like kids, students, they are electing to be there. And if they're going to elect to be there and you ask them to make an investment in their
Yep.
own success, there's not a lot of kids that are going to be like, nah, you know what, I'm really good at being a 7 out of 10. I don't think I'm back for an 8. Like,
Mhm.
you can save your 7 out of 10 for algebra. Like, do your 7 out of 10 there. But here, you elect to be here. You're choosing to be here, and I'm giving you time to invest in making yourself better.
Yep.
You follow that to its natural conclusion. Why would you not take that? Take those steps.
Right. And that is, and a lot of that has to do it, a lot of it's culture, and a lot of it's just seeing the people around you. It's the billion drops of water that make up the pool, right? And once you're immersed in it and you see everybody else doing it, yeah, they're gonna do it, and then they're gonna need some guidance. Everybody's gonna have a rep that they don't, that is a mindless rep. That's going to happen. What kind of processes do we have in place with every member on the field and with our organization to move from mind less to mind more?
Yeah.
Right? What can we be doing to make that happen? And there's a lot of, we have serious conversations about it. We've been doing our workshop this summer with Vivace. It's literally called reps, making every rep mind more. And that's the entire workshop. It's figuring out ways to, and systems for taking those moments where you're fatigued or where you think you're good enough. That's the one with us all the time. It's a big band. We're going to play loud. We're going to play okay most of the time. It's going to be a spectacle when you show up with 350 people dressed in purple and gold costumes. And, it's going to be something that is going to, the audience is going to ooh, and the audience is going to ah, for sure.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it's something really catastrophic needs to happen out there for it to not have that kind of impact on an audience, right? So once we have the show on the field, it's very simple and natural for people to hear the crowd response and be like, nailed it, we got it. What do we need to do? We don't need to do anything any different. Like, we got it. So it's taking those times, that like early October, mid-October, when we're not competing for every 10th for the Intergalactic Marching Band Championship, which doesn't exist for college band yet.
Yet.
No, I'm kidding.
Very important. Yet.
Yet. It's taking those reps and figuring out ways to strategically engage members at a higher level, right? How do we make them more relevant How do we make it more active? How do we get everybody having that same shared goal and same shared mindset? And it's tough. We're a group that we're not a college band that learns a new show every few weeks. So like or every week, like some of our friends who do absolutely amazing stuff. There's not that extrinsic motivation of I need to learn this thing for this weekend. We have a field show that we are trying to perfect, just like all those competitive groups out there and those that's our model. We're trying to perfect it over time. So, what kind of systems can we put in place to make sure that everybody out there is engaged, and then that trajectory is where it needs to be. And we talk about time. It's time. You're either wasting it, spending it, or investing it. So what's a waste of time? Well, a mindless rep is a waste of time. It is you didn't not yield anything from that in the moment. So at the very least, spend that time, right? Get something from it, get some sort of data from it or some sort of enjoyment. But geez, if you could turn every rep into an investment in yourself and the people around you and that audience who's going to be there next weekend, then you're cooking with gas, babe. You're going to do some really, really great things.
How often within a rehearsal's time you take a rep rather than you provide any sort of direction? Do you solicit from the students? Like,
it's
that constant, or is it?
Well, so here's how it works. We have every rep has a purpose, right? If your rep, and I'd say this to everybody, if in concert band, any rep that you're doing, anything that you're doing, if you can give it purpose and you can have a why to it, it's going to be a better rep for sure. Let's do it again is probably not. Are you going to yield
You forgot
something?
to say please. If you say do it again, please, that makes it all.
Like, why are we doing it again? Those are the routine. Those are mindless. Those are going to be mindless reps for the vast majority of the people out there. So for us, every rep has a job, and we will identify that job beforehand. The system is level one. Hey, gang, we're going to go from letter A to letter B, and this is a level one. This is a level one rep. All right. This is for self-inventory purposes only, right? And then for us as staff, or for people who, anyone who's observing, we are not going to say anything after this rep. This is all for data collection, level one for data collection. All right, ready, set, go with the major. We get to the end of the rep. You got your magic 3 seconds, check, adjust. All right, run it back. Let's run it back. Let's try it again. Those are normally the highest yield reps. Those are the highest yield reps because every member on the field knows that it's all up to them, right? And are there mistakes? There are 11 billion mistakes. There are 11 billion mistakes. But if everyone on the field is real about the process and takes the inventory, who's responsible for fixing the mistakes? Them. Who knows they made the mistakes? Them, right? And all right, great. Yeah, make your inventory, prioritize, and now reset. Let's run it back. Who else knows they made the mistakes? We do. Are we going to try to fix all of those? No, because we know that that's not an effective use of time. Let's get another rep. All right, let's call this will be level one music in spot. Let's stand in spot. Level one music. All right. So that means we're on the mark time. That means we're focusing only on that music inventory. Okay, great. You know what? Let's make this level two music in spot. As soon as we say level two music, our music instructors fall out of the form. Our music instructors become the ears. Our music instructors are then going to provide feedback, positive, constructive feedback using our feedback model: belief, acknowledgement, constructive critique, keep it going, encouragement, right? So we're going to make sure that system's in place. They're going to listen. All right, we get to the end. I'm not going to say anything. We get to the end. We got our magic 3 seconds. They still have a level one inventory, right? But now the level twos are going to provide the feedback. Ready, set, go. 10 seconds. All right. We have a click system. Bark, bark, bark means wrap it up. That means they come in for a soft landing on their feedback. Bark, bark, 2 clicks means fall in. Everybody goes to Everybody goes to receiving. There's silence that fills the space. All right, off we go again. I'm not going to say a thing, right? We're going to do it again, right? All right, let's try this again. No, with level 2 reps, we always give them 2 because we want to make sure that there's acknowledgement of growth. That's the A, acknowledgement, right? Belief that it could be better, acknowledgement of growth and effort, constructive criticism, and then keep it going. So we do a second level 2 rep. They're going to give feedback. The level 2 folks are going to provide feedback on what the improvements were hopeful to be, right? Yay, we got it. Yay, we're going to get it in the future, right? We're on the right track. And then they fall back in. A level 3 rep would come after that. Level 3 is where we get involved as staff, as people who are in the audience, who are out front. Yeah. And then level 3, chances are if we did a level 1 rep for inventory, and then, level 1 in spot, level 2 again, chances are by the time we get to level 3, I don't have a whole lot to say, right? Chances are it's gotten pretty darn good. And at that point, it's all about, if there were mistakes, if there are still mistakes that pop up, then they're not mistakes anymore. They're misunderstandings. Hmm. And my job is to take the misunderstandings and help clarify those as quickly as possible, right? My job as an educator, we talk to our student leaders about this constantly. Your job is not to point out mistakes. Your job is to facilitate an environment where we are cleaning. Everybody's in charge of their own mistakes. Your job is to help facilitate clarity of misunderstandings, right? Let's make sure that we all have a shared understanding of what's obvious and what we need to do, right? So anyway, those level 3 reps, that's where the box is going to say something. Okay, that's where anybody up top, hey, this isn't, and the comments are more about communication. The comments are more about clarity as it's communicating to the audience, right? It goes beyond the self, level 1, we, us, the connection on the field, but then how is this getting out to the people in the seats? And what kind of connection is this making? So anyway, when you say how many in a rehearsal, how many reps are student feedback? I mean, everyone's job at all times is to keep that level 1 inventory cooking. Right. And there are specific reps designed for that purpose, where we are just going to waste time if we're adding to the mix. We're not going to allow every member to yield from that process, and we're going to enable them to become used to waiting to be fixed, right? So those level 1 reps are super high yield. And then, all right, level 2, student leadership pops right out. They're the field techs. It's also a really inexpensive way to get a pretty decent staff on your team too. Like if you're looking for, this model works really, really well. Yeah. Typically, I know a lot of groups around here are starting to use it, and it works. That's still student feedback, and then the staff is going to get involved, down the line. Do we have rehearsals that are going to be where we say at the beginning of the rehearsal, hey gang, you're in charge of level 1. It's going to be a level 3 day, right? We have a set of goals that, are really are mostly communicative. So just get ready for a lot of level 3 feedback. Your level 1 is really up to you, Yeah. We have those days.
But putting that responsibility, sure. Like, they walk in the door and they have to understand, like, you have to be, and you would hope that everybody always brings their very best to every rehearsal, but we know the circumstances of life, the needs that somebody have, it can make it be difficult. But if they know going into that rehearsal that we need you to, as you said, you're doing all that level 1 inventory, and that is assumed. That is, already has to be in place. It does heighten the stakes. And I'm sure as you are approaching, like, a major performance of some kind, that those kind of rehearsal focus points become a little bit more prominent.
For sure. Yeah. And again, it's back to that idea of efficacy and context, right? There are times during the season where we really need to dial up the level 1 stuff early on. And then naturally, as we progress and we're getting closer to those, when we were going to the Rose Parade, it's like, it can be a lot of level 3. There's going to be it's going to happen as we're getting closer to that event, we're gonna have our hands on that. As it makes sense. It's logical and it makes sense. I will say when we were in, and this is on the documentary, the Road to Roses documentary, you could see this happen on camera. There was a lot of concern because we shut down our field show in it was first or second week in November. And then when you go to the Rose Parade, you perform at their band fest, Remo Band Fest, which is, all of the bands who are in the Rose Parade are going to do a field show, and it's this big deal.
Yeah.
And a lot of the kids, and it was, it's end of December, so you're looking at 6 weeks without having, and we didn't do anything. There were no, I don't know why I did that with my hands, but there was
Looked
no.
official.
Thanks. There were requests. The kids were like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna forget this thing. And it was just constant. Hey, trust the process. Like it. I promise that if we do this, if we really walk the talk with this being effective, I promise when we get out there, we're going to be okay." And we had a systematic approach when we got out there. We had a rehearsal. Thankfully, had a rehearsal. The day before BandFest, and it's like, all right, here we go. We've done this before. This is going to be level one. This is just for self inventory. We're going to do quick checks level one. This is part, segment 1.3. Magic time for goal setting engagement, and then we take the rep and we just buy into those systems, and it was really, really magical. Like it was a really cool. Anyone who had questions, like anyone in our group, whoever questioned that process, it's just like, oh yeah, this is pretty great.
You set me up for success, and I didn't even really know it. So
Yeah,
that is
yeah, and
really
I
cool.
breathed a sigh of relief too because I was like, oh man, this this doesn't work. I'm
Well,
screwed.
a little bit. It's always good to have those moments over one's teaching career where it is a validation of,
Yeah.
okay, I thought this, I believe this, I practiced this. Hey, it's really working. Okay, good.
Hey, woo,
Continue to
nice.
continue to
Yeah,
push forward on that.
yeah, for sure.
Adam, this has all been so great. I know you mentioned you've got some upcoming summer camps. If are any regionally, where are you going to be at over the next month or so?
We've got a camp coming up at Kutztown University in Eastern Pennsylvania. That's coming up quick in the next 2 weeks,
Okay.
July 7 to 9. We've got our leadership weekend coming up at Westchester University, July 19th and 20th. And that one's always exciting because we welcome Dr. Tim Lotzenheiser to campus, and we spend 2 days with him and my good friend Bobby Lambert, just walking the talk,
Yeah.
installing these things and getting practice, because competence or confidence. A lot of students who are student leaders for the first time, they really need that confidence, and that comes through competence, and that comes through reps. So we get you in those situations and lab environments, and really get you to a point where you're going to be able to feel very confident going into training camp. We have our incomparable workshop at Westchester University, July 21 through 24. That's a super cool event where we have 5 different tracks. We have a drum major track, wind leadership track, battery percussion front ensemble, color guard. And that is a few hundred students from across the country. We have kids coming in from Puerto Rico this year. We're really excited about.
Great.
And we get together and we focus a little bit on the performance, developing stronger performers. We got amazing clinicians from all over the place who come in and work with those tracks. But then we also put together a field show with everybody. And we do a lot of these things that I'm speaking about. Students get to experience what it's like to be a student leader. They get to provide level 2 feedback. They get to use the feedback model. They get to, again, develop confidence through competence in that environment. So some really cool things happening. Single day workshops coming up in Tennessee in mid-July. We've got stuff going on in Virginia. Check out the website, vivaciproductions.com. We'd love to see you.
Great. Adam, I'll drop your email in the ending slide here if people want to reach out directly and get in touch with you through Westchester. But thanks
Great.
again so much for taking your time. This has all been such good stuff, especially as directors are gearing up for marching band this year.
Appreciate you, Travis. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care, everybody. Until next time for more committee conversations from the Educational Outreach Committee, Life, Love, and Music.